Chris, good to see you and welcome to the podcast.
Owen, always good to chat, mate. I'm looking forward to this. How's life?
Life is good, my friend. Life is good. It's busy, family front, house front, doing some stuff around the backyard, doing some landscaping over summer. It's been hard, but it's been good. How about you?
Oh, things are good, mate. It's a new year. Obviously, lots we're going to talk about today around maybe 2024 and the years ahead. But absolutely, it's been good to have a bit of a break over Christmas and come into 2025 with a new brand and same team but new brand and excited for a bit of momentum shift in the market. I mean, I think I'll talk a bit more about this on the 2 Cents episode, which I do with Pete, which we're actually recording in about an hour. But we're actually seeing a little bit more of the positive sentiment coming back in because there's expectation of rate cuts, and so and then I guess also a new year is always a great time in everybody's life to rethink, where are we going? What's the vision forward for us as a couple, as a family, individually, single? What are you trying to achieve this year? What personal, professional goals? And I'm always excited this point of year because it's really, you can ask people big questions about what their plans are, and nothing gets me more excited than, understanding what people want to achieve.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And I think what we're going to talk about today is actually like a bit of property, a lot of business because of that. You mentioned new year, new brand. We're going to talk about just like mortgage broking as an industry, generally speaking. For people that don't know, if this is your first time tuning into an episode with Chris and I, Chris is my mortgage broker. I work directly with Chris and in particular Ben at Alcove. Right now, for example, we're actually organising a business loan that's secured against our property with Ben directly. And I've known you for so long, and it's just good to do these. But Chris, I actually have had a lot of questions about some things lately, and I figured it was good to put it all out there on the air. And I know you have wanted to chat about this as well. So we're going to talk about the changes in your business, some of the lessons learned, mostly the things that stayed the same, but just how the business has evolved through time as well. Obviously, you've got a name, which is Alcove, and people are seeing that everywhere. You were the first outside partner that I ever trusted with Rask. So with our community, partnering with you and the team has always been like something that's like been really dear to me. Not just because you helped me get into my first property, but just generally the education that you bring. I'd maybe like to start for folks that haven't really gone on the journey with you yet and they're thinking about, working with you and the team or just listen to the podcast that you're always on. Can you go back maybe just to where your mortgage broking journey started? I've got my notes here in front of me. Where did that start? Why did you move into broking versus staying in financial planning?
Look, I feel like I'm getting old, right? I'm 38. I just turned 38, right? And so I stopped working. I left school at 18 like everyone, right? And
Happy birthday.
But I started going straight into work. I didn't do uni. I was doing it part-time, so accounting, then into financial advice. And I could go on for about an hour here. But ultimately, I bounced around the financial advice industry since 2007 till like 2011, 2012. And then I stopped working with older clients, started working with younger clients as a financial advisor. It was a company called Property Planning Australia. Shout out to Dave and the team there. It's a great business. And I was working there doing joint meetings with mortgage brokers and as a financial advisor. And I was like, God, I'm loving these conversations. I don't know much about property. And it's really amazing how when you help younger people, they're compounding because a lot of advice industry is on the older end. I want to retire tomorrow and I need more money. And so I was a bit over that demographic, if I'm honest, and I was excited by what younger people need to do, and I could do. And I guess the opportunity with building wealth when you're younger is through leverage, and so that's through using debt, and it's also what are you most likely going to use leverage into, and it's property. And so I just went, I want to help young people. Their biggest challenge is property and debt, and I fell out of love with insurance and super and. About 2 years later, I started, the business, which was actually Canopy Private. And my identity was a financial advisor. That's what I'd been doing for sort of 7 years. I'd invested all my energy in being an advisor. But then I was conflicted because I was like, well, younger people need mortgages and, they want property advice. And so I started Canopy Private back in 2014. It was a really confused business, to be honest. I wanted to work with younger people, but I was branding myself part young, part old. About 2 years in, I rebranded it to Wealthful. The reason is I really wanted to move advice industry into a bit more whole being, mindful wealth, and looking at goals just outside financial goals. I was quite early on this journey. You see a lot of advice businesses are in the marketplace doing this now. There was only a handful, and some of the best advisors around now were sort of friends of mine back then as well. So we ran the name Wealth for quite a few years, but we actually sold our financial advice business back in 2020. To be honest, I probably should have sold it a few years earlier. I was completely out of love with financial advice, and we'd grown from doing $6 million in mortgages in my first year, then to 16, and then all of a sudden now we're doing over 100 mil. And we ended up selling the advice business, and we had the name Wealthful. And I think back in 2023, because we were 3 years out of the advice world, we were actually saying, I actually want to go back to the advice world now and really help them improve their value propositions. I understand their side of the fence. I'm now not in their world anymore. I'm doing mortgages, and I think advisors can do better. I think they can, have better conversations with their clients around what their goals are around their property decisions, whether it's buying home, upgrading, downsizing, helping their parents or kids with property decisions. And I think a lot of advisors don't understand the opportunity great debt advice and mortgage strategy advice can give to their clients. And so we started going on a journey there, and we realized Wealthful and financial advisors, that name clashed. And so I went through a whole branding exercise. We decided to rebrand Wealthful to Blusk. And that was a play on Blue Sky, which Elon ended up not Elon. There's a new
Jeff Bezos. Was it
Jeff Bezos? The Blue Sky, the new chat forum, the new Twitter.
Oh, the new Twitter. Yeah, no, I'm thinking Blue Origin. Yeah.
So it's come out now, some Blue Sky. I can't actually some social media platform, but Blusk was a play on Blue Sky, and it's really hard to come up with a company name. And so we launched that in 2023, and and it was, things were good, and we had a really clear value proposition. But in 2024, we made a decision to bring in a new business partner and also rebrand again. While that made sense when we discussed it and we went through a process, we thought 1 + 1 = 3. When we did join, we realized that 1 + 1 wasn't going to equal 3, and it was not really the right fit long term. And instead of just holding on and just hoping things get better, what we decided to do is cut the cord basically, and decide to part ways. And we had a decision there to go, look, we don't want to be involved with that name or that brand anymore. But do we go back to Blusk, or do we just start fresh? And so I went around the team, and we made an agreement to come up with a new name. And that's where we ended up with Alcove.
So obviously there's like a transition period here. You guys are located in Sydney. You got people everywhere, but located in Sydney on the north side there. So like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in the Rask community have gone to you and the team and worked closely with everyone. I guess if we just zoom into the last couple of years, Chris, how has the business grown over the last 2 years? Like this, obviously 2024, there were a lot of lessons learned there, and you could feel free to share those from like a business owner perspective. But also, I'm just curious because it seems like the team Alcove now, you've got a fresh brand and all that sort of stuff. It's like virtually the same team in my opinion, and bigger than it was before. The business seems to be in most respects flourishing in 2025. So I'm just curious, how you reflect on that time and kind of where we're at now and looking ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. It was just me, lonely soul wolf, trying to start a broking business and an advice business and trying to figure it out. And until about 2018, 2019, and then Ben joined. And then we had 2, then we had another one. Now we're over 35. I guess the reason it is so large is we've got a big support team overseas as well. And that's about half of that. But in Australia, I think there's 15 of that in Australia. And I guess if you go back even just 2 years ago, it was probably 17 or 18. And so even though we've had, this journey and we've changed names, the team that we've been slowly building, and while we've changed the name and it looks a little bit like, 1 minute you were this, 1 minute you were that, behind the scenes, the team has stayed the same, And so Ben, John, Piyush, Kat, Alice joined, Jack joined. So that's kind of and Sabrina, that's kind of like our strategy team. And they're all about delivering amazing advice to our customers. And then we've got, a whole other element of team members now that are looking to explore new ways to get clients, because the business has been solely built in the past through myself. So I was really the sole broker. Through this podcast, the elephant in the room, a lot of LinkedIn content, through just providing good advice to customers over time, and them sticking around, and over time their friends and family need help and they refer, and then they come back for future lending. And so it was a very simple business in a lot of sense, built on just giving good trusted advice that clients could, always a good sounding board for them to come back and consider their property moves. And but now we're looking to expand into new regions. What I mentioned before, going back into the advice world, we've got Nick and Craig heading up our partnerships team there. A guy called Matt is heading up our private banking division. That's a whole unique private banking broker model. We've got Ab and Alex exploring how do we deliver mortgages really efficiently through tech to big partners, etc. So yeah, it is a name change, but behind the scenes, the team have all gone along for the ride with us through the roller coaster, and they're excited for what's to come.
Yeah, see, like mortgage broking is obviously hugely relationship based. And I think we've spoken about this a lot on the podcast. Is like the difference between a good mortgage broker and the average mortgage broker is like it's stark. And I don't think people really understand that. Like if you get a good broker who understands property strategy and just holistically what you can do, I would say it's probably the most profound type of expert in your life, to be honest. Like if you run a business, maybe your accountant's that person for you, but mortgage broking in particular is kind of like there's some amazing brokers, right? And then there is like everyone else. But one of the things that, and this, Chris, like we recently got our own AFSL, full personal advice. We can be financial planners and we will do that. We can do all those things, right? But I know in the back of my mind that building a relationship business that goes from like just yourself, as you were saying, like 2-3 people, there's a lot of like suburban financial advisors or mortgage brokers, to then go into a national business with dozens of team members. Like if you can reflect on that as a business owner, like you've obviously got this offshore division, you've got these super talented and like highly experienced people in Australia that kind of lead the brand forward. How do you think about scaling the business? Like what have been some of the kind of, maybe not, you don't have to give away all the secrets, but like what's in the playbook, if you look back on it right now, I know I'm catching you off guard here, but like if you look back on it and you think, what are the things that we've done really well over the last, 11 years, is it? Yeah, 11 years. Like what are the things that we've done well to kind of reach that escape velocity? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is the coming from into the mortgage broking industry from financial advice, and this is not a crack at financial advisors. I was one, and I love what they do. Is coming in. I came in with a different mindset into broking. So I came from and great advisors think about what's best practice, what's the optimal option here. They have scenarios in their head and they're comparing. That's what advisors do. You're comparing scenarios and you're looking at different paths and you're trying to figure it out. I came into it with that mindset. Secondly, I had really good training. Hats off to Property Planning Australia, the way they attack mortgage strategy. It was just, I just started in a really good spot. That was more luck than anything. I had multiple options. I just picked that one, right? And so, I had really good training around mortgage strategy. Plus, I had the financial advice background. And I came into broking and said, look, well, how can we deliver mortgage strategy that is focused on, giving people the options and making sure they structure things the best way? Unfortunately, the broking industry hasn't come, on that origin, right? And this is the challenge, and I'm making to. I've met with a lot of the CEOs at all the aggregators in recent months, MFAA, etc. And what I'm trying to do is help the broking industry take that leap from a transactional validator, facilitator, get the best bank product or best rate, to no. Clients come to mortgage brokers to get trusted advice and strategy advice around debt structuring and helping people navigate their big property moves, right? They're not going to become property advisors. That's a whole other industry that needs to get regulated, right? Which I can talk about. But they do need to elevate themselves as the broking industry gets digitized and, getting access to loans and banks becomes easier in some sense because automated credit decisioning. There's a lot that's going to happen in the coming years. Brokers that will survive will the ones that go, I use all that tech. I can get your loans easily. I can give you an amazing customer experience like digitally. But you know what? You don't go anywhere else, because when you have those conversations that you need, do I spend 2.1 or 2, or do I refinance or not? Do I get cash out now, or do I wait till a year or two time? But there's a lot of questions. Should I sell that investment property or buy another one? Or there's so many questions, and particularly for first home buyers, or to be honest, at any stage, the great brokers add that little bit of extra context and helping them with that decision. The advice industry tried to digitize, and then you see the ones that really did well is the ones that use the digital tech, but then added the human element, that sort of hybrid role. And I think that's where the broking industry will go. But I'd say the thing that is our secret sauce, and it's something that's hard to replicate, is one, it's a mindset from myself down through the business. And then it's also that mindset leads into our strategy team. So our strategy team are all thinking, okay, what's best practice here? What's the optimal outcome? What's the alternative solution? Not just, hey, you told me you wanted to do X, Y, Z, and here, this is how you make it happen. And I think that is our secret sauce. The challenge we've had is also deliver that, and then also deliver that efficiently at scale. And it's really hard to replicate. So I had to replicate my mind into Ben into John into Piyush into Kat into Alice, Alice into Jack into Andrew. And then we've got to put that to our Nepal team and into making sure that they're picking up and being proactive, not reactive. And so, I mean, I could talk for days.
That's something I think about a lot, Chris, because, like, for example, like I think about, like, the further you get out in an organization, the kind of original ethos can be diluted, if that makes sense. Like the in the beginning, you and Ben were like together, stuck at the hip, every day you're in the trenches. But then you go from that to, say, in the future, 20 people. Like, that's a challenge for most businesses in general, but also the experience that every customer, like the nth customer that goes, not the number 1 or number 10, but the 1,000th customer that comes through the doors of Alcove. You have the challenge of kind of making sure that that's the expectation. So you go from just yourself to the systems, right? So I know you invested a lot in technology and that sort of stuff over the last few years, which has been really powerful. I don't want to spend too long on this because I know, like, we want to get back to making great content and helping people through the podcast, through the free course, through like all the tools and stuff that you guys have got. And of course, everyone listening to this, if they want to catch up with you and the team, can just book a free call. It's not like something that is behind a closed door. But just maybe if you could leave us with maybe like your vision for where the business is going to go over the next few years. Like, if you and I do this in a couple of years, a couple of years time, we're going to check back in again. Where do you think you'll be, Alcove as a business?
Look, it's trying to, as a leader in the business, doing things that I love doing, right, that I'm good at, my strengths, and also having people around, because what I could have stayed as a small boutique business, right, just a few of us, and made a good income and stayed small. But as I sort of had a few team members, I'm like, oh, this is really fun doing it with other people. And actually, no, they're actually achieving their goals, and now they're getting partners and having kids, and I like hearing about that. And it became something I wasn't expecting, and now it's come to a point where I just love seeing the success of others in the team, and this becoming something that's scalable. And so and that's sort of my vision, right? So I think for me, it's doing things in the business, just staying true to our values and what we believe in, and that's just delivering great advice and making sure our clients are getting a great experience and making great property decisions. So it goes beyond debt decisions to making good property, and property is some of the biggest life decisions. And then that links into them setting themselves up financially and also lifestyle-wise to live a good life, and then making sure their other needs are financially taken care of with other advisors, etc. So that's our vision, right? Helping more people, both through our team, making sure they're achieving what they want to achieve, but also all the clients that we're helping. The more team members we've got, the more people we can help, right? So I'm going to be continuing to do this podcast, other podcasts, video content, just things that I can get access to bigger audiences, right? So we can attract more people to our business, right? And, I'll keep growing out the team to support that. But there's a few other key plays because we're built on trusted advice and strategic advice. We're just going to keep doubling down on that and delivering it in a much more efficient and personalized tech-driven way. So that's our exciting thing for us is we can do this, but we could also improve through technology, but also through people.
Yep.
We're also going to have our partnerships business. There's a huge opportunity with partnering with great financial advice firms and accounting firms. So we've got 2 guys heading that up, and they're really leading the way. The private banking division's a really interesting one, and also supporting just super talented younger brokers that are wanting to build a business. We've got a few guys in that team already. Adam and Alex are probably the 2 there, and Jack's moving into that space as well. And they all have different niches, and it's just supporting them to take the learnings of what succeeded for us as a team and saying, hey, you want to service a part of the market that we don't do a lot in. Alex is, for example, working people in the tech industry. Can I help him, just be an amazing resource to people in the tech industry? And so that's exciting for us as well, because we can just, and that's the idea, is just to be able to help more people really, and get that scale impact and just keep investing in the team. And I get more fun out of this, even the financial impact, after a certain point, and, we upgraded our home, and we'll do a reno, but at some point money loses meaning. What my brain is all about building. My wife laughs at me because you just want a project. And the business is my project. And so I just don't ever see us ever getting to a point where the business isn't a project. So it's just always going to be evolving and moving forward. And that's the fun of life. And business is just such a big part of it for me.
Yeah, I'm glad you called out those different things, because when you changed you got the new name of Alcove, I should say. I did have a lot of our financial advice partners, people I know in industry, accountants, like obviously it's a pretty big network, and they all reached out to me like, hey, what's going on with Chris? And because a lot of them want to partner with you and they see what we do together and the amount of support that you give to our community at Rask. And I know you do a lot now with some of the other podcasts, but then also people that have their own businesses that want to support, to kind of bolt into what you're doing. I'm glad you mentioned the other brokers, because I know a lot of young brokers and people that are interested in moving into that career path for themselves have now seen what you're doing with Alcove and want to get in touch. So I'll put a link in the show notes for people that are in industry, like financial planners, would-be brokers, all of you that are listening or watching that want to move in that space. I'll put a link in there so you can get in touch with Chris's team directly. And then also you can obviously work with Alcove through Rask, and it actually supports Rask as well. So that's a huge way to do it. And you've helped hundreds of clients through Rask over the years, mate. So I'm really appreciative of that. All right, Chris, we'll be back with more episodes, and you and Pete every Sunday morning on the Australian Property Podcast, 7 a.m. You guys don't get up at 7 on a Sunday, but that's when the episode airs. So, mate, really appreciate you taking the time. All the best with Alcove in 2025, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Owen.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.